and then we will go from there. Alrighty. So today we're going to be covering characteristics of the Southeast. So let me go to the Buzz app here, and we're going to be third period social studies, and I'm going to show you the show it first. So third period social studies, and we're going to be under geography lesson 8 today. Lesson 8, and then you have the 5 things there. So you have the teach it, a read it, a watch it, a play it, and a show it for our lesson. Alrighty. I'm going to talk about the show it here in just a second. But remember, with the lesson, I get all the information for the lesson. So all the information that's found in the lesson comes from the article that's in the teach it and the read it. Alrighty. So if you're stuck on doing the show it, and you get to a question where you're like, oh, I can't remember what that is, go back to the read it, or go back to the teach it, and the answer will be in there. So you have to look back in the article with the read it and the teach it to figure out the information for your show it. So there's a bunch of information about each state in here today, so a very long list. And then there's a practice question there at the bottom. All righty. And then you have a watch it video that you can watch about the Southeast region, and then there's another little game that you can play with the Southeast region. But with the show it today, it's a little different than last week. So when you start it, you just have one attempt on it. So there's 10 multiple choice questions, all right? So you're not gonna cover each state. It's gonna be about 10 questions that you're gonna have to try to figure out. So the first one here, again, is like our normal one where you look at the map and you figure out what region is the Southeast region. So we'll figure out what region where that's located. Remember, use your directions. And then the rest are multiple choice. So I'm going to help you to figure out, write down the important notes that'll help you get the answers to all these questions. All righty. So make sure you're paying attention as we go through the notes, because you don't need to write down everything. You just need to write down some certain things. Okay. Because there's a lot of information on all those note pages. All right. So let's go back to our note screen, our lesson plan for today. So we're going to be talking about the characteristics of the Southeast region. Okay. So the main notes you're going to write today are going to be the state name and then something that's listed in bold that's talked about with the state. But I will tell you exactly what you need to write down. Alrighty, so I'll tell you exactly what you need to write down. So the first few things, first couple slides, I don't think you need to write down anything, and then we'll get into the writing here in a little bit. Alrighty, so the characteristics of the Southeast region. So the Southeast region, it's made up of 12 states. So our Northeast region had 11. Our Southeast has 12 states. And if you ever need to look for or identify the Southeast region, you always want to look for that state of Florida. So if it's ever chunked up and you can't determine what state you're looking at, always try to go to the state, or look for that state of Florida. It's that peninsula that's at the bottom of the United States. And that'll help you identify the Southeast region. All righty. So here's all the states that are in the Southeast region. You have West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. So there's 12 states. And we're going to go through all 12 of those states here in just a second. And we're going to talk about some characteristics about each state. All righty. But here's some general things about the Southeast region. All righty. So the Southeast region, it's also known as the Sun Belt region due to its location and warmer climate. So since it's closer to the equator, remember it gets more direct sunlight since it's closer to the equator, that imaginary line that goes 0 degrees latitude. It's closer to the equator, so it gets more direct sunlight. So it tends to have warmer climates. That's why it's known as the Sun Belt region. It's also known as the South region as well. So some people just refer to it as the South rather than the Southeast. But we're going to call it the Southeast region. So all 12 states here are the Southeast region. All righty. Here's our first thing that we need to write down. So within the Southeast region, you're just going to put this first bullet point. So there are 2 big bodies of water. So it says the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are the 2 major bodies of water in this region. So that's our first bullet point we need to write down. So write this first one here. So the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are the 2 major bodies of water in this region. This is what we're writing down. The Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are the 2 major bodies of water in this region. The Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are the two major bodies of water in this region. So this is what we're writing down today, our first note. Alrighty, so when we're looking at the map here, we can find the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. So the Gulf of Mexico, what a gulf means, it's a form of body of water. So it's a body of water that extends deeply into the land. So this water extends deep into the land. It carved out a little bit of the land here. And so it borders all of these southern states of the southeast region here. And then you have Texas and the country of Mexico that all border the Gulf of Mexico here. And then you have the Atlantic Ocean, which goes along the left side of our southeast region, all along the left coast. That's all part of the Atlantic Ocean. Alrighty. So the big thing we need to write down is just this first bullet point is the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are two major bodies of water in this region. Okay, and then the region is also characterized for the Atlantic coastline, the Gulf of Mexico coastline, and the Appalachian Mountains, which we'll get to in a second. So those are our three big land marks and land forms. The Gulf of Mexico coastline along the coast, the Atlantic Ocean coastline, and then the Appalachian Mountains, which run through a lot of our southeast states as well. Okay? So the two big bodies of water are the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. Alrighty. Our next thing is we're going to talk about the Appalachian Trail. So here's our next note you're going to put down. So you're going to say the Appalachian Trail runs 2,180 miles through 14 states. Okay. So the Appalachian Trail runs 2,180 miles through 14 states. The Appalachian Trail runs 2,180 miles through 14 states. That's the second thing you write down there. Alrighty, and the Appalachian Trail, it's one of the world's most famous hiking trails. And we've kind of briefly talked about it in previous lessons, but it runs all the way through the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, so it runs all the way through the Appalachian Mountains. So it runs all the way from the state of Georgia here, all the way up to the state of Maine. And this red trail is the main path of the Appalachian Mountains. And you can kind of see this little picture here on the bottom left corner. That's a little section of the Appalachian Trail. You can see the path that this person is walking towards that follows the whole entire Appalachian Trail. Alrighty. Excuse me. So you have the Appalachian Trail runs 2,180 miles through 14 states. Okay. Yes, Kayla.
What was number 3? The note we're supposed to write down.
So all you've written down so far is the two big bodies of water, which is the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. And then the Appalachian Trail runs 2,180 miles through 14 states. Okay? Zach, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Can you say where it was again?
So the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico are two big bodies of water. Did you get that, Kayla? And then the Appalachian Trail runs 2,180 miles through 14 states. That's our second note. You good, Kayla?
Yep.
Okay. So our next thing, we're going to talk about each state now. So we're going to go through 12 states. All righty. Now there's going to be a lot of little facts about each state. So you do not need to write down everything that's on the screen. Okay. I will just tell you, you're going to write down probably one thing per state, and I will tell you that one thing. All righty. So don't worry about writing everything down. I will talk about everything, but you just need to write down one thing for each state, and that'll help you with the show it. Okay, and I'll let you know what you need to write down. All righty. So our first state that we're going to cover is West Virginia. West Virginia. And the thing you need to write down for West Virginia is the thing that's in bold here. So it's the highest elevation east of the Mississippi River. So West Virginia, the highest elevation east of the Mississippi River. So I'd write down the state name and then write down the one note about the state. So put West Virginia, then equals the highest elevation east of the Mississippi River. Highest elevation east of the Mississippi River. Alrighty. And so some other things about West Virginia, it's nicknamed the Mountain State because a lot of it's covered in mountains. So it's mostly made up of mountains. So you have the Appalachian Mountains that are take up a lot of our portion of the West Virginia state. So if you're looking at the map here of West Virginia, the Appalachian Mountains, a lot of the highest points of the Appalachian Mountains are located within West Virginia. And then there's a lot of different major rivers, such as like the Ohio River, the Tug Fork River, and the Cheat River are all some big rivers that are within the state of West Virginia. And there's many, many more rivers that are located in West Virginia. But the big thing here for West Virginia is we just need to know it's the highest elevation east of the Mississippi River. So what that means is it has the highest point, so the tallest point of land that's east of our Mississippi River. So remember the Mississippi River that we covered last week? It runs north and south and basically covers or cuts the United States in half. So everything to the right side of the Mississippi River, West Virginia has the highest elevation, the highest point. Okay, so that is the state of West Virginia. Country roads, take me home. Alrighty, we go to West Virginia. Alrighty, our next state then is Virginia. So just Virginia now, Virginia. And for Virginia, we're gonna write down a lot for Virginia, unfortunately, because there's 2 questions in the show about Virginia. So we're gonna write down both things that are in bold here. So we're gonna say Virginia includes the Shenandoah Valley and the Chesapeake Bay and the Delmarva Peninsula. So that's our first note about Virginia. So it includes the Shenandoah Valley, the Chesapeake Bay, and the Delmarva Peninsula. And then our second note would be it also has the world's largest natural harbor known as Hampton Roads. Okay, so there's 2 things we need to write down for Virginia. Okay, so it includes the Shenandoah Valley, Chesapeake Bay, and Delmarva Peninsula. And then it has the world's largest natural harbor known as the Hampton Roads. So some other things about Virginia, again, it's in this mountainous region. So but it has a lot of our made up of mostly forest mountains. So there's a lot of forests, a lot of trees along the mountain range within Virginia. There's some big rivers that go throughout Virginia, such as the Shenandoah, the Rappahannock, and the York River. And then, like we said, it has the world's largest natural harbor, known as the Hampton Roads, which is located at the mouth of 3 different rivers there. So you have the Elizabeth River, the James River, and the Nansemond River. Okay, so 2 things for Virginia. We're saying it includes the Shenandoah Valley. So a valley, remember, is a kind of a lowland in between mountains. It has a lot of greenery. The Chesapeake Bay is one of our more popular famous bays. So a bay is a big body of water that again extends into the land. And then the Delmarva Peninsula. So a peninsula is a piece of land surrounded by water on 3 sides. So out of the north, south, east, and west side, 3 of those are covered by water, and then 1 of them is connected to land. Okay, so if all 4 of them were surrounded by water, it'd be an island. But since it's connected to land on the 4th side, it's considered a peninsula. So we have 2 things for Virginia. It includes the Shenandoah Valley, the Chesapeake Bay, and the Delmarva Peninsula. And then it has the world's largest natural harbor, known as Hampton Roads. I'll give you another couple seconds to write that down, then we'll go to our next state. Are we good with Virginia? Good, good, good. All right, our next state then is Kentucky. Kentucky. And so for Kentucky, all you need to put down is actually just put down Mammoth Cave. So Kentucky, Mammoth Cave. Kentucky, Mammoth Cave. Kentucky, Mammoth Cave. All righty, so Kentucky, it's one of our neighbors to our state of Ohio. So it's our neighbor to the southwest portion of Ohio. So you could drive to Kentucky very easily. It's known as the Bluegrass State, not because it has bluegrass. It's just because bluegrass is a form of music and a form of culture. And so it's known as the Bluegrass State. And then Mammoth Cave is right here in the middle here. Mammoth Cave. If you need to know how to spell it. Right here in the middle. So Mammoth Cave. Alrighty. And Kentucky is made of a mountainous region and a swampy land of the Mississippi floodplain. And then we get to Mammoth Cave. So Mammoth Cave is actually the world's longest cave system. So it's the world's longest cave system. And there's about 365 miles of explored caves. And there's still some caves that haven't been explored yet. All right, so Mammoth Cave. So if you're ever interested in going underground and being in a cave under the ground, Mammoth Cave is the place to go. And it's close to Ohio. So Mammoth Cave is the world's longest cave system. That's all you need to write down for that one, Kentucky, Mammoth Cave. And then there's some other things that are in Kentucky, such as some major rivers, which would include Ohio, the Green River, the Licking River, Kentucky River, and Mississippi River. And then it also has, Kentucky's well known for having the Kentucky Derby, which was just held a couple weeks ago due to all this, usually held in the summer or in the springtime, but due to the pandemic, it was moved to September. So it was held in early September. And the Kentucky Derby is an annual horse race that takes place at Churchill Downs, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. So usually the Kentucky Derby, you might see it on TV and people dress up in their fancy hats and fancy outfits. And then they go and cheer on horses race around a racetrack. And they place money to try to win a grand fortune of picking the correct horses that's going to race. So the Kentucky Derby is a famous sporting event within Kentucky. So all you need to write down for Kentucky was Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave. All righty? Mammoth Cave. Our next state is the state of North Carolina. North Carolina. And all you're going to write down is the thing that's in bold here in the middle. So all you need to write down for North Carolina is it includes 3 capes. North Carolina includes 3 capes. North Carolina includes 3 capes. North Carolina includes 3 capes. So what a cape is a point of high land that extends into the ocean. All right, so it's a high land that's it goes into the ocean. So it's almost like these island chains, these high land chains that are in the ocean here along the Atlantic Ocean. So you have Cape Hatteras, Cape Lookout, and Cape Fear are all of our famous capes within the North Carolina state. And North Carolina can also be divided, since it's such a drawn out state lengthwise, so it extends very long in terms of width. And there's 4 different regions within, or 4 different smaller regions within North Carolina. So you have the Piedmont Plateau region, which tends to be more in the middle here, and it tends to be more flat land, Piedmont Plateau. Then you have the Atlantic coastline, which is like along the Atlantic Ocean here. You have the Outer Banks, which is really along the coastline there, the Outer Banks, the land along the coast. And then you have the Appalachian Mountains on the far left side of North Carolina that run through the state there as well, okay? So it's divided into 4 regions, and all we're writing down is it includes 3 capes. And remember, a cape is a point of land, high land that extends into the ocean. All right, so North Carolina includes 3 capes. You might have been to North Carolina maybe a couple times. A lot of people from Ohio tend to go to the beaches that are located in North Carolina, like the Outer Banks or Emerald Isle or Wilmington Beach or Myrtle Beach. Some of it's located in North Carolina. So Ohio people tend to travel to North Carolina frequently. Alrighty. And then our next state would be South Carolina. So South Carolina is right below North Carolina. And all we're writing down for South Carolina is, let's see here, is the Sea Islands. So South Carolina contains the Sea Islands. South Carolina contains the Sea Islands. South Carolina contains the Sea Islands. So South Carolina contains the Sea Islands. And there's also 4 different parts of South Carolina. So the Sea Islands are one part. And those are islands along the Atlantic coastline. It's more than 100 islands there. You also have the Piedmont Plateau, so another flatland right in the middle there. The Atlantic Coastal Plain, which is really flat land, so it's almost land that's equal to sea level. And then you have the Blue Ridge Mountains in the top left corner of South Carolina, a mountain range as well. So there's 4 different regions there. And there's some different major rivers known as the Edisto River, the Great Petey River, the Santee River, and the Savannah River. So Savannah, you have a river named after you in South Carolina. Okay, so South Carolina, all we're putting down is Sea Islands. So there's more than 100 islands for South Carolina. 100 islands along South Carolina. Okay? Yes, Kayla C.
When I was in South Carolina, me and my mom and my sister were right on the border of South Carolina, and we went to an amusement park in South Carolina, and then we had a hotel in North Carolina.
Oh, nice. So you're right on the border.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you're probably close to that Myrtle Beach range, because Myrtle Beach goes through North and South Carolina. Awesome. Alrighty, our next state, we have about, let's see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more states to get to. Our next state is Tennessee. Tennessee. So with Tennessee, all you need to write down is that first bullet point. So it's part of the Appalachian Mountains and Valley. So it's part of the Appalachian Mountains and Valley region. All right, Appalachian Mountains and Valley region. So Tennessee is part of the Appalachian Mountains and Valley. And some important rivers within Tennessee include the Cumberland River, the Tennessee River, Mississippi River, Clinch River, and the Duck Rivers. And then there's a lake known as the Kentucky Lake, which is the largest man-made lake in Tennessee and in the eastern United States. So man-made lake is when humans actually dug out the land to make a lake. So Kentucky Lake would be the largest man-made lake within the state of Tennessee. All righty. So Kentucky or Tennessee here is the Appalachian Mountains and Appalachian Valley. Yes, Emily. You gotta turn on your mic.
Sorry, I forgot.
You're good. Okay, let's see.
Don't most of the lakes form now?
But yeah, it was
Like most of them?
Yep. Just form naturally. Yep.
File
Oh,
down.
cool.
So Tennessee, the Appalachian Mountains and Valley. All right, our next state is the state of Georgia. So Georgia, all you need to put down for Georgia is part of the Appalachian Mountain Range. So Georgia, Appalachian Mountain Range. So on this map here, it shows you all the tall mountains that are within the northern part of Georgia. So Georgia is where the Appalachian Mountain Range, a part of it. And Georgia, remember, is where the Appalachian Trail begins or ends, depending on where you start and end. So it's one of the starting point or ending point of the Appalachian Trail. And then it's also part of the Piedmont Plateau, the coastal plain, the swampland, and there's a lot of swampland in the southern part of the state. And there's some sea islands along the coast. And then it also has a few major rivers, the Savannah River, the Flint River, and the Chattahoochee River. So that's the state of Georgia. Keeping Georgia on your mind. So Georgia, the Appalachian Mountain Range is what we wrote down for that one. Georgia is part of the Appalachian Mountain Range. Georgia, Appalachian Mountain Range. And then our next state is the state of Florida. Florida. So with Florida, all you need to put down is Florida is a peninsula. Florida is a peninsula. That first bullet point there. Florida is a peninsula. Florida Peninsula. So remember, this map shows a really good job at a peninsula. So a peninsula, again, it's a piece of land surrounded by water on three sides. So if you look at the north, south, east, and west side, three of those sides are surrounded by water. So if you look at the east side here, Florida is touching water. If you look at the south side, Florida is again touching water. If you look at the west side, Florida is touching water. And then if you look at the north side, Florida is connected to land. Okay, so it's connected to land on one side and then surrounded by water on three sides. That is a peninsula. So Florida is a peninsula. And then it also can be divided into four regions. So you have the coastline of the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. You have the uplands, which are lands near the states of Georgia and Alabama, so the northern part of the state. You have the Florida Keys, which are a group of islands down here at the bottom of that map. The Florida Keys. And then you have the Everglades, which are kind of in the middle, and that's kind of tends to be a swampland in the Everglades. Okay, and that's where a lot of our crocodiles and alligators tend to hang out, in the Everglades. And then some prominent attractions within Florida include the Kennedy Space Center. That's where a lot of our aircraft or spaceships take off from. So they fly into space. They leave, they launch from the Kennedy Space Center. And then Walt Disney World is also located in Florida. So if you've ever been to Walt Disney World, you've been to the state of Florida. Yes, Kayla.
I've been to Florida, and we were in Destin, Florida, and we were like right on the beach, and then there was a lake right behind us, and there was like a little tiny island with nothing on it, but we saw a whole bunch of alligators on there.
Oh yeah. Yep, alligators tend to like to hang out in Florida. Destin Beach near the Florida Keys.
Yeah, Destin, Florida was really fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool beaches along the Florida coastline. So the Kennedy Space Center and the Walt Disney World are also located in Florida. So the big thing with Florida is it's a peninsula. So it's surrounded by water on three sides. Surrounded by water on three sides. Okay. Our next state is the state of Alabama. Alabama. And so for Alabama, you just need to write down the first bullet point. So it's hilly and mountainous in parts. Hilly and mountainous in parts. Hilly and mountainous in parts. So Alabama is hilly and mountainous in parts. There's about forest land that covers about 65% of the available land. So out of all the land that's in the state of Alabama, the majority of it is covered with forests. And then it's mostly made up of four regions. So you have a coastal plain, a Cumberland Plateau, the Piedmont Upland, and the Piedmont Plateau. And there's about 1,400 miles of navigable rivers So rivers that you can sail through, there's about 1,400 miles worth lengths of rivers within the state of Alabama. Okay. So after Alabama, we got 3 more states to get to. After this one, 3 more. So Alabama is a hilly and mountainous in parts. Hilly and mountainous in parts. Alabama, hilly and mountainous in parts. Okay. Our next state is the state of Mississippi. Mississippi. So for Mississippi, you can just say it's divided into 3 regions. That's it. So divided into 3 regions. That's all you need to put down. Mississippi divided into 3 regions. So the 3 regions are on the west side of the state, it's the Mississippi Plain. So you have a lot of flat land there. Then in the middle part, you have a hilly region in the middle of Mississippi. And in the east part, along the east coast of Mississippi, the right side, you have a Gulf coastal plain. So again, a flat land that tends to be closer to the Gulf Coast. And then some important waterways include the Mississippi River, the Pearl River, the Big Black River, and the Yazoo River. So Mississippi, divided into 3 parts. So split into 3 regions.
What do we write down?
Just put Mississippi divided into 3 parts. Mississippi divided into 3 parts. All right, we got 2 more. Our second to last one is Arkansas. Arkansas. And so with Arkansas, you're going to write down these names of the lakes down here. So it's the second to last bullet point. So Arkansas lakes include Beaver, Call, Shoals, Millwood, and Alchita. So Arkansas lakes include Beaver, Call, Shoals, Millwood, and Alchita. So that's what that bullet point is what you're writing down for Arkansas. So it includes lakes like the Beaver, the Call Lake, the Shoals Lake, the Millwood, and the Alchita Lake.
What is your national park there?
So the national park is called the Hot Springs National Park, and it is the smallest national park in the country. So it's the smallest national park in the entire United States. So a national park is usually a park that's the government sections off as parkland, so nobody can build any houses there or take down any trees. The Hot Springs National Park tends to be an area where it has a lot of hot springs.
Are there actual hot springs there?
Yep, there's a few in Arkansas, yep.
Wow.
So are you ready for Arkansas? For this one is the second to last bullet point. So Arkansas lakes include Beaver, Call, Shoals, Millwood, and Alchita. So that second to last bullet point is what you're writing down for Arkansas.
How did the hot springs form?
They're just natural. So that's just kind of how the land was created. The hot springs are kind of a natural escape for gases that are built up in the middle of our Earth. So the gases escape out of these hot springs, and so hot air comes out of these holes in the ground, and that's why they're called hot springs.
How come it says Arkansas when it has Kansas in it?
I know, isn't that kind of weird? It's not Arkansas, it's Arkansas. That's how you pronounce it. So it's weird how the pronouncing is and how you pronounce it in English. So we're just writing down the second to last bullet point there. So about the rivers. It includes the Beaver, the Call, the Shoals, the Millwood, and the Alchita River. And some other things about Arkansas, there's a lot of lowlands in the south and east part of it, in the east part of the region. There's some highlands in the north and west part. And then almost all the rivers start in the northeast portion, northeast corner of northeast corner of Arkansas, and they flow down to the southeast corner of Arkansas. So they start in the northeast and they flow down to the bottom right corner. So we have those 5 lakes there. So the Beaver Lake, Call, Shoals, Millwood, and Alchita. We got one more state. Alrighty, our last state then. Our last state is the state of Louisiana. Louisiana. So all you write down for Louisiana is that second bullet point there. So Louisiana, it's a state that contains more than 3,000 square miles of inland water. So it contains more than 3,000 square miles of inland water. So what that means is there's a lot of water that's within the state of Louisiana. So it's not bordering a bigger body of water like the ocean or a gulf. There's a lot of lakes and rivers that make up the state of Louisiana. So there's more than 3,000 square miles of inland waters within the state of Louisiana. Okay? And so there's a lot of lowlands, terraces, and hills in Louisiana. So Louisiana is very low to the ground, low sea level elevation. And then there's a few major rivers like the Pearl, the Red River, and the Alchita River. And then Louisiana is also home to the city of New Orleans, which is actually not the capital of New Orleans, or not the capital of Louisiana. It's just a major city within the state of New Orleans. But we'll get to the states on Friday, and the state capital of Louisiana is Baton Rouge. But New Orleans is a very popular place to tour. It has a lot of culture, jazz culture in New Orleans. Yes, Sophia?
What do we write down again?
So just that second bullet point. So it contains more than 3,000 square miles of inland water. Contains more than 3,000 square miles of inland water. So it contains 3,000 square miles of inland water. (3,000 square miles of inland water. All righty, let me get to our last little thing here.